Good day, fellow deal makers. Welcome to the Deal Scout. On today's show, we're going to have a conversation with a geek, the Land Geek, actually. Mr. Mark, welcome to the Deal Scout.
Josh Wilson, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, the Land Geek. What the heck is the Land Geek?
So the Land Geek is I was taking a walk one day and I was teaching people how to buy and sell raw land. And I thought, no one's going to remember Mark Podolsky, but they'll remember the Land Geek. And it sort of embodies what I am, which is I'm kind of geeky and I love raw land and I love systems and automation and processes and technology. So the name really just fit.
Awesome. All right, so we're walking a piece of property, and I bring some of my friends along. Normally, like I meet people in bars or coffee shops or something like that. But in this scenario, we're walking raw land, and you're kind of meeting some of me and my friends, and you're going, okay, guys, this is what I look for when walking a property or when looking at raw land. This is where the gold is that everybody's stepping over. What kind of things do you see that I don't?
Okay, so I see opportunity on the buy. So Josh, let me just kind of walk you through the model. So you live in Florida, right?
Yeah, beautiful country of Florida.
Beautiful country of Florida. So I'm going to assume that you own 5 acres of raw land where I live in Arizona and you owe $200 in back taxes. So you're essentially advertising two important things to me. Number one, you have no emotional attachment to the raw land. You're in Florida, the property's in Arizona. And number two, you're distressed financially in some weird way because we don't pay for things like our property taxes. We don't value them in the same way. As a result, the county treasurer keeps sending you notices saying, Josh, if you don't pay your property taxes, you're going to lose that property to a tax deed or a tax lien investor. So all I'm going to do is look at the comparable sales on your 5 acre parcel for the last 12 to 18 months. I'm going to take the lowest comparable sale and divide by 4. And that's going to get me what Warren Buffett would call a 300% margin of safety. So let's say that the lowest comparable sale is $10,000. I'm going to send you an actual offer for $2,500. Now you accept it. Why? Because for you, $2,500 is better than nothing. In reality, 3 to 5% of people accept my quote unquote top dollar deal. But now that you've accepted it, I have to go through due diligence or in-depth research. I have to confirm you still own the property. I have to confirm back taxes are only $200. I have to make sure there's been no breaks in the chain of title, no liens or encumbrances. And so I have this whole big due diligence checklist. I outsource this to my team in the Philippines. They're connected to an American title company. It costs about $11. If I was investing $5,000 or more, I would just close traditionally through an American title company. But let's say for $2,500, everything checks out and I'm getting the plat maps, the aerial maps, GIS maps, everything that a new buyer is going to want. So while I'm doing my due diligence, I'm also creating my marketing package. So now I own your 5 acre parcel. So Josh, I bought it from you for, you get $2,300. I pay the taxes for $200. I own it free and clear, $2,500. Now I'm going to sell it 30 days or less and I'm going to make a cash flow like a rental home. So I have a built-in best buyer. Do you know who it is?
No.
It's the neighbors. The neighbors. So I'm going to send out neighbor letters saying, hey, here's your opportunity, protect your privacy, protect your views, know your neighbor. So oftentimes the neighbors will buy it. Now, if they pass, I'll go to my buyers list. My buyers list passes, I'll go to a little website you may have never heard of. It's called Craigslist. It's the 15th most trafficked website in the United States. I'll go to one I know you've heard of called Meta or Facebook, buy, sell groups in the marketplace. And then I'll go to lands. So I go to landmodo.com, landandfarm.com, landsofamerica.com, landflip.com, landhub.com. These are platforms where people buy and sell raw land. But Josh, the way that I'm going to sell it is the secret. I'm going to make it irresistible. So all I'm going to do is ask somebody for a $2,500 down payment. And then I'll make it a car payment. Let's say $297 a month and 9% interest in the next 84 months. So it's a one-time sale. I'll get my capital out on the down, but I could go 6 to 10 months out. And then I'm going to get $297 a month and 9% interest in the next 84 months. And Josh, no renters, no rehabs, no renovations, no rodents. And because I'm not dealing with a tenant, I'm exempt from Dodd-Frank, RESPA, and the SAFE Act, all this owner's real estate legislation. And then it's a simple game. Can we create enough land notes where our passive income exceeds our fixed expenses? And then we're working because we want to, not because we have to.
Dang it, Mark. when you asked me that question, who's the best buyer? Like that is so simple, and I overlooked it. And I've done a part of that, right? So someone came to me and said, I have this large parcel of property I want to sell. I went to the neighbors and I sold it within a day or two when I was doing, normal realtor work. I overlooked, like your process seems so massively simple and easy to understand that I have overlooked that a million times. And I'm a deal guy. Like that is an amazing job, Mark, putting that together. Nice job.
Thank you.
So you were going for a walk and you're like, hey, I should do this. And if I look through your background, investment banker, and you've done some, cool stuff in the back, founder this and dental consultant on that, right? Like, so cool background. But you were going for a walk one day and you're like, I got an idea. I'm going to go hire people in the Philippines. I'm going to go put on offers. I'm going to buy. How did that start?
Well, really, I was flipping raw land for cash when I first started. So for my investment banking gig, I hated it. And so my firm hires this guy and he's telling me that he's flipping raw land, pennies on the dollar online, and he's making a 300% return on his investment. And Josh, I'm looking at companies all day long. And a great company, has 15% EBITDA margins or free cash flow. I'm looking at average companies at 10%, and I'm looking at companies all day long less than 10%. So I don't believe it. So once I started flipping the land, I started realizing, okay, the cash is great, but this is a hustle. I want cash flow. So how do I make this cash flow? And then I started, discovering the owner financing model from there.
So what could go wrong? So are you coming and visited the properties? Are you buying local? What could go wrong when buying it? What about, EPA? What about the guy had a, huge diesel tank in the ground? Like, how do you deal with those kind of issues? Because those are the fear triggers that probably prevent me from digging into something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a really good question. So during your due diligence, you'll have somebody go out there for you and take pictures, shoot video, and fill out your due diligence checklist. Make sure nobody's dumping on the property. And usually, I mean, these are rural properties. We're not looking at New Jersey or Pennsylvania or Ohio, areas where there could be super fun sites. You could also go to epa.gov and make sure you're not, buying in an environmental-ish area. But typically, 99.9% of the time, you will not have any type of environmental issue whatsoever on a piece of rural land.
So for a $2,500 piece of property, what could you expect when you send someone out to walk the property or fly a drone or do this kind of due diligence? What kind of costs are associated with those kind of things?
So it's about $50 for a local Craigslist gig. Somebody go out there and just look at the property for you.
Nice. Now, fun fact, two fun facts. One is I actually connected with Craig Newmark, the guy who created Craigslist back in the day, right? And super cool. And he's working on some really interesting projects. But you're saying that is the 15th most visited site in the world or something like that?
In the United States.
Oh, in the United States. Holy moly. You would think that there's maybe some naughty stuff, that people are looking at more than that. That's incredible.
I know. It's massive.
Yeah.
It's massive.
So, all right. So you create systems, processes. You're like, I'm kind of a geek. I like, systems, automation, technology. You're outsourced a lot of stuff. What does a typical day look like for Mark?
So I just think, basically. I theme my days. So Mondays and Fridays are my thinking days. I'm just taking walks, I'm working out, I'm meditating, spending time with people I love, and thinking about the business and ways that it can grow. So I think those are really important days. Tuesdays are my podcast day. So I also have a podcast as well. So I do interviews or I get interviewed. Wednesdays are my team meeting days. And then Thursdays are client meeting days. And so when I have my calendar, I kind of know exactly what I'm going to be doing. And then in between those days, if I feel like being creative and creating something or content, I'll find some time in the morning on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday to do that as well.
You love structure, right? Have you always been like this? If you and I were hanging out back in the day, maybe high school or middle school or something like that. What were you like then?
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty structured kid. Um, Absolutely. I've always been pretty self-disciplined, and I just feel a little bit more in control
Yeah.
in my day. So I feel better with constraints than without constraints. That's not to say that once in a while I'll have, a day full of chaos and the day just kind of gets away from me. But usually I like having those things that make me feel good, you know,
Yeah.
done first, like putting your oxygen mask on first, and then I can take care of everybody else.
So the book Eat the Frog or any type of Brian Tracy's, any type of time management book, those are probably like one of your favorites.
No, it's so funny. My favorite
Really?
time management book is not a time management book. It's Oliver Berkman, 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mortals. And it is so good. It's like my most recommended book of 2022.
Time
It is
management
the
for mortals?
it is the antidote to that feeling that you'll never get enough done, because we will never get enough done. We'll never be able to complete all the big projects. We'll never be able to see other countries. We're always making decisions. And it's this existential sort of, conflict that we all have, that we feel like, we should get it all done, but there's just another email coming in. There's another project to complete. There's always something better to do. It never ends. And we're finite human beings. And he discusses all these issues. And at the end of it, you just feel like, oh my gosh, I'm so calm now, because you embrace the fact that you, on this limited time, if you're lucky, you get 4,000 weeks. What are the most meaningful ways to spend that time and ignore everything else?
Wow. So you and I are reading that book probably on a Monday or Friday because those are your thinking days, right? And we're really structured over here. And we're reading that book and you're like, Josh, dude, I know you. You need to have this golden nugget, right? So you pull one or two pieces of golden nuggets and you're like, Josh, read this book. Don't get up. No chasing squirrels until you're done reading these two things. What are the two pieces of advice that I need to grab from that book?
So I think the first one is just that you're never going to get it all done. And letting go of that idea, that, that fear of missing out, let it go. You are going to miss out. In fact, you will only be able to experience about 1% of the things that you want to experience in life, and just let it go, because there's just too much to do. There's too many books to read. There's too many movies to see. There's too many people to meet. There's too many countries to visit. There's too many projects to complete. We'll just never get it all done, and just let it go. That would be the first one. The second one is the fact that the only time that we really have is the now. So when you are doing your work and you are spending that time that's so limited, really be where you are, which is, a very Zen thing to do. We all hear it. I mean, it's so overused, be here now, live in the now, live in the present, right? But when you really embrace it and you really go deep into whatever you're doing and forget about all the other distractions, because we're so easily distracted, because it's really just a feeling of anxiety. And you just feel the anxiety. Like, I'll be working on a keynote presentation and suddenly I'll feel anxious, because I'll feel like, oh my gosh, why am I doing this? I could be doing it better. I'll recognize that feeling, and then I'll immediately go to my phone and go to something simple like, oh, where can I get a dopamine hit? Can I check my email? Can I check an analytic? Did I get a sale? And then my attention is divided and I go back to the hard project. But really, once we accept the fact that the project is hard, the feelings will arise, they'll go away, and stay with it, it's no longer hard.
Bro, I think you in that book are like peering into my soul, right? I do exactly that, right? We have tons of deals going on and we got too much shit going on for this little brain to manage. When that happens, I like to go to a simple thing that I know I can manage, and I go to an email box and I start deleting crap, right? Like deleting and unsubscribing. That's one of my favorite things to do. And then I push off the important project until there's a time constraint, and then I'll dive in. And and then I'll dive in with incredible focus, and then I'll finish it. Why in the world did I not do that in the first place, right?
Right. And it's just managing those uncomfortable feelings that we all have. And, it comes up for me every day where my immediate self-soothing is to go to my phone and distract myself. Yeah. And it's usually an email. So now that I'm kind of recognizing it, you get better at it. It's like building that muscle.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Ah.
But you were just not aware of it. I mean, I guess James Clear talks about it, maybe Atomic Habits or Near Eyal and Indistractable, but I just like the way that Oliver Berkman talks about it in 4,000 Weeks.
Dude, that's so good. I mean, we could talk about dirt and such, but that is so good for deal makers, especially, the tip of the spear deal makers who are out on the hunt, the deal scout. And, my job is to dig up dirt everywhere I go, right? And then bring in my partners to do the deals and such like that. So like distractions for me is my business model, right?
Right.
But this is so powerful, and I appreciate that. Like, thank you. I'm sending you a check or something like that. I'm buying the book. I'm reading it. I'll try to make the change, but like that, being aware of that is so cool, man. So I promised 2 fun facts. I had to look this up prior, but your thing talks about Dirt Rich, and you're an author of a book, Dirt Rich. You also have a podcast. Let's do a plug for you and your book and your podcast show for people who want to like learn this method, learn this methodology, and do it, and make some money. Where can people hear about your book and your podcast?
Yeah. So Dirt Rich, you could just go to the website, thelandgeek.com/Dirt Rich, or it's on Amazon. And the podcast is the Art of Passive Income podcast, where I'll interview experts like you, or, we'll have our group of coaches. We'll do a roundtable podcast, and we'll talk about a pain point in the land investing business and how we all solve it differently.
Dude, super cool. Now, I love podcasts. We built a bunch of them and such like that, and I've been in it for a bit. Why'd you start it? Like, what inspired you one day? You're going for a walk or doing some meditation. You're like, I should have a podcast. Like, what did that day look like for you?
So I just wanted to talk about what I was doing, and this new technology was there, and just being geeky. I thought, oh, this is kind of cool. And so I just started doing it. And then, so I started with the Land Geek podcast, just talking about raw land. And then I got bored with it. And I thought, oh, I want to talk to like interesting people. I'm like, how do I get Grant Cardone? How do I meet Grant Cardone? Oh, what if I interview him on my podcast? So then I started the podcast, like the Best Passive Income Model podcast. And I'd meet like Sharon Lechter from Rich Dad, Poor Dad, or, all these really interesting people that I've never had an opportunity to meet. And then interview them on the podcast, extract out their wisdom. And then I would go through my shtick, like walking them through my model and say, do I have the best passive income model? And then I got bored with that. And then, so now I'm doing the Art of Passive Income podcast. And that one I'm staying with. I love it. I'm getting all my needs met. I'm talking about land. I'm interviewing experts. There's no need to change.
Yeah. It's funny that you started, evolved, pivot, right? And to got to where you're at, and you're like, all right, I have my needs met. So I've built, you're a lot faster than me, buddy. I've built 10 or 11 podcast shows, and I even started investing in, we're looking at acquiring some, because I had a hard time finding my fit, and I think I've landed on it. But for me, it's multiple, which maybe I'm just a squirrel chaser, who knows? But like, I love the fact of how you systematically have approached investing, passive investing, and even podcasting. It's super, super cool. Out of all your podcast interviews, what has stood out to be your like favorite moment in podcasting?
My favorite moment
besides this right now.
Besides this moment. So I think Greg McCune from Essentialism came on, and I thought, oh, I'll get 30 minutes with this guy. He spent like an hour with us. Yeah. And it was really a great guy and just so generous with his time. That one stuck out. Richard Thalheimer, the founder of the Sharper Image, he would have spent all day with us. I mean, he was so generous with his time. Such an interesting story of the Sharper Image, and that those two kind of leap out at me right now. But I I've had some amazing moments on the podcast.
Yeah.
But I've done it for so many years. I can't think of it. It's like saying, well, what's your favorite dessert? I mean, it's like
Chocolate cake. I know exactly.
All right, see,
so
like
good.
yeah. Okay, you're on death row, Josh. What would be your last meal?
I'm on death row. Last meal, yeah, steak, and probably I don't know, steak and chocolate cake. Sounds good to me.
Sounds good.
I interviewed Greg too, and he was amazing, and we had such a fun conversation. We role played. We talked about dad and mom situation, and yeah, he's a great guest, isn't he? He did a great job.
He's a great guest. Yeah.
But I promised 2 fun facts, and I looked this up because I've heard the thing dirt poor before, because you have a book called Dirt Rich. Is that kind of how you took a spin on dirt poor, medieval term, brought it to dirt rich?
Exactly.
All right, give us your origin. Softball pitch. Here you go.
Well, as far as like how I came up with that,
yeah.
I would be saying that on the podcast. Like, I've been saying it for a long time. And I thought, oh, this will just be good for the book. And then the subtitle is how one ambitiously lazy geek created passive income without renters, rehabs, or rodents.
Yeah.
And then I'm working on Dirt Rich 2 right now, the next plot, which I thought was kind of clever.
I think it's super clever. You must have come up with that on a Monday or Friday.
A Monday or Friday, absolutely. I actually think somebody in my group came up with it, and I stole it.
Yeah, it's super cool. Dirt poor came from like a medieval term where if you were rich, you had thresh on the floor, or you had hay or something like that, or maybe even wood, right? But if you were super poor, you couldn't have anything. So then you were considered dirt poor. I looked that up. I don't know if it's right. Someone could fact check me. I don't know, but I thought that was interesting.
That is cool.
Yeah. So, all right. Over the years of dirt investing in raw land, how many acres do you think you have transacted?
Well, I've done over 6,000 transactions. What that equates in far as acres, gosh, I wouldn't even be able to give you an accurate guess.
Do you think maybe a whole state? Like if we put 6,000 transactions, 5 acres at a time?
Yeah, definitely. Oh, for sure.
So essentially you have sold a state at least.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right.
For sure.
How do you deal with so there's a saying in the investment world, like angels don't fly. Like when it comes to investing, like do you focus like geographically within a 100-mile radius of you in case you needed to, or do you stay continental US? Are you open to other? Like what kind of boundaries do you set for your investment criteria?
Yeah. So Josh, let's just be honest, right? Nobody wakes up and thinks to themselves, boy, I'd like some raw land today in Iowa, unless you live in Iowa.
Yeah.
So our biggest buyer pool are going to want to be the Sunshine States: Nevada, Arizona, Texas, Colorado, New Mexico, California. What am I missing? Maybe a little bit the Northwest, Washington, Oregon, Florida. So that's really where we're going to be focusing.
Yeah. So you look at, are you looking at like population growth and those kind of like stats or anything like that? You're like, what kind of state would I like to live in?
I mean, if it's an hour to 3 hours from the nearest city, there may not be a lot of growth in one of these counties, but there's a lust for land in this country. So I've never been stuck with a piece of raw land. And just because I personally may not want to own that piece of land, there's someone else out there that would love it and that they can afford it with our owner financing.
Lust for land. That's going to be the title of today's episode, by the way. Awesome. I love it. When it comes to, this owner financing model, I love it, right? Because you get paid back your original nut, like in the very beginning, right? Like, so you're like, I got $2,500 in, it's only $2,500 down payment, and then the rest is just purely passive income over the time. What has been, how do I structure this question? What has been like best deal, worst deal ever? And then like, what is I knew how I was going to ask it. So we'll ask best deal, worst deal ever in a minute. When it comes to that, like, are you holding it and then you transfer deed like once it's paid off? Like, how do you structure mechanically that thing?
Yeah. So we use software that automates all of this. So we're 90% automated on the front end and back end with software. And then we have inexpensive VAs, running that middle piece. So, so essentially, with the press of a button, we create the contracts. So a purchase sale agreement, a promissory note, a land sale contract. Wow. And then once they pay off their note, we get a notification from the software saying deed that property. And then my acquisition manager will, they've limited power of attorney. They'll go ahead and deed it, notarize it, all that good stuff.
So all day long, you're just looking at nuts and bolts and figuring out how to make the machine go better and faster, right?
Yeah, exactly. Kaizen, continuous improvement.
Yeah. Did you read The Toyota Way or?
No, I probably should though.
Okay. Yeah. Cause I mean, Toyota, that's shout out to one of my coaches, Bob. That's his favorite book. And he, references that about 3 times every coaching session. So shout out to Bob. Okay. So now we get into best worst deal ever, right? So like looking back over 6,000 transactions, which one stood out where you're like, Mark's like, that was my favorite one?
Okay. Well, let's start with the worst one.
I love it.
Get that one out of the way. Okay. Yeah. The worst deal was in Treasure Lake, Pennsylvania. So it was a gated community. It had $1 million homes, 2 PGA rated golf courses, 3 lakes. It was beautiful, but they were overdeveloped. So they had all these property organization fees. They had water fees, and they had all these lots, 1,000 lots had liens on them. So I fly in there and I start meeting with the property owners associations and look, you got all this dead money and I'm going to resurrect it. Deed me over these properties. I'll get new owners in there and you'll get your property owners association is going to make more money. The county's going to get more money. They're going to get their taxes and everyone's going to be happy. And this is like a slam dunk deal, right? No problem. Yeah. Josh, for 3 years, I had to negotiate with them. The golfers were afraid there's going to be too many golfers, taking up their times. The boaters were afraid there's going to be too many people in the boat. The women were like, our social club's going to get ruined. You're going to bring too many people into our community. So finally, I convinced them after 3 years. And now we're heading into 2007.
Oh, jeez.
So, I bought 1,000 lots at $50 a lot. I made about $100,000. And then 2008 came around. I couldn't even give these things away. And so that was the worst deal.
Oh, what did you learn there? Like, all right. So,
well, I learned there that I don't want, first of all, like, don't get emotionally involved in just because I like the land. Don't get emotionally involved. Factor your time. So once I factored in my time, I actually, as a first deal, I actually lost money on, or maybe broke even, because I was flying back and forth and I was spending all this time negotiating. So it's just not, you can't just look at the dollar amount. You got to look at your time. I also learned that, people don't like these property owners association fees. No one likes getting nickel and dime for something they're not using.
Yeah. Yeah. Holy moly. Oh, so good.
Yeah.
Best deal.
So the best deal was in Nevada. It was a complicated deal. It was with the railroad. So the railroad had millions of acres, which they then had sold to a private equity group owned by Morgan Stanley. Morgan Stanley then started selling that off to a public company that only wanted the mineral rights. So the mineral rights company had no use for the land. They just wanted to hold the minerals. So I went in there and I started buying sections of land, subdividing them into 40-acre parcels. And I was buying them at $30 an acre and selling them at $500 an acre. So that one deal, I made over $5 million.
Yes. Good job, man. Deal. Yeah, let's do that one again, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, yeah.
Holy moly. All right. So if you were going to have a movie made made after you, like a biography after Mark, the land guy, the land geek, who would play you? Who would you want to play you?
Well, a lot of people say I look like David Schwimmer. I don't know if I'd want him to play me, but that's what people say.
Who's that?
David Schwimmer from Friends.
Ah.
Yeah.
Let me look him up real quick.
But who would I want to play me?
Yeah.
What actor do I like? I don't know. I mean, should I just be arrogant and say, hey, Daniel Day-Lewis, play Mark Podolsky, the Land Geek. Win another Academy Award, you genius thespian, you.
Actually, he listens into on this, so like maybe we'll have him sign up and maybe apply to be you in the movie The Land Geek.
Yeah. It's like, you don't drink my milkshake. I drink yours on that raw land.
He's walking around with his air pistol thing that, from There Will Be Blood.
Yeah, exactly.
He's walking the land and he's like, searching for I don't know. Awesome. Okay, that's cool, man. As you're building this, right? You've done some cool deals, made some good money. In terms of, you could share as much as you want. In terms of like deals that are just on autopilot for you, essentially, how many deals right now do you have kind of running on your model where they're paying you every month?
Oh my gosh. I should know this number. A lot, hundreds, a lot.
Super cool. What's the goal, right? Like, so passive income in the ESBI quadrants of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and anybody would say you're out of the rat race because your passive income has far surpassed your expenses. You're kind of out of the rat race, and your passive income, you're doing it okay. Why keep on going? And what's the kind of the goal, or what's the ambition to do something?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good point. You're right. Like, there's no reason for me to make any more money, honestly. And it's not about that. It's really about helping other people get out of what I call solo economic dependency, which means if they're personally not working, they're not making any money.
Yeah.
So helping people who have, freelancers, they have a job. Even let's pick on people that solve their money problems, but not their time problems. Yeah. Doctors, lawyers, dentists. So I want to help everybody along the economic spectrum get out of solo economic dependency so they can move up Maslow's hierarchy of needs into self-actualization and really fulfill their greatest life purpose.
That's awesome. Solo economic dependency. Is that how you say it?
Exactly.
Dang it. That might be the title of the show. I don't know. I might have to do two. Do you have fun? Like, so when you're interviewing someone, are you thinking like, what's the title? Like, what am I thinking? Like, what's the key nugget? If there's one thing, how do you approach that?
I tell my team member to listen to it and find it. I don't want to, I don't, because like it would drive me crazy, Josh. And then I would start thinking like, where's our good phrase? Where's our,
yeah.
I would try to be funnier than I really am.
Of course you have it systemized and processed. I'm not quite there yet. And you're a little faster than me. All right. So we're hanging out and the perfect deal comes across the table and it could be anywhere in the world for you. Right. And I know you just did some recent travel. So maybe this is a good segue in that. Like, kind of give us an idea of where you recently went and why was it important to you?
So I just got back from Bali, and it was important to me because I've never been to Southeast Asia, and I had all these fears going in. I was, you can't drink the water. There's, the traffic there is terrible. The infrastructure there is terrible. Like, there's all these amazing, cool ways to die in Bali, and I'd been, reading up on all of them, and I hadn't had time to get any type of immunization shots, and once I got there, all those fears went away. So I think there's that Seneca quote where, the fears in your imagination are worse than they are in reality. Something like that. I'm paraphrasing, but it's still true. Like we put all these things in our head, and then once you get there, it's not at all like that. And it was just a magical place. There's something special about the Hinduism in Bali. The idea of karma, like, there's all this chaos going around. I didn't see one Balinese person get angry, frustrated, irritated, moody at all. They're just completely happy people, and yet, they're by all, conventional standards poor.
Yeah,
and just. In an incredible magical experience. I think the best people of all the places I've traveled. And then, just you find these other travelers, like you sit in a coffee shop and you just go right to the deep end in 10 minutes. Like, there's no small talk. There's something about travelers and meeting people around the world. Like, they just get into it about life and all that.
Yeah. I love it when I'm connecting on a travel trip or something like that, or someone's passing through, because that you have to bypass all the small talk, right? Because you're probably never going to see this person again. You're like, man, I don't want another, hey man, great weather, how's the sun? It doesn't matter. You're like, dude, what, why is that tattoo important to you? What, like, let's dive in. Let's chat. What question? So you and I are at coffee shop in Bali, having some fun. We just did a big deal. We doubled the deal that you did with Morgan Stanley back in the day. And you and I are having some fun. We're sitting there and a traveler comes up, hangs out with us for a minute. And you have, a couple questions that are some of your go-to questions for going deep. What would you ask that traveler?
Oh my gosh. The first question I like to ask people is, if you could have anyone over for dinner that's alive and have dinner conversation with them, what would it be? And then riff off of that, because I think that really kind of gives you an idea of what that person's interested in. Mm-hmm. And then you can riff off of their interests and go to the deep end really quickly.
That's a great question.
And kind of start sharing with them, like who you would have over for dinner and why. So you always want to get to that why. Another easy question is, why are you here?
Yeah.
And then, you get right into the deep end, especially in a place like Bali, which is typically a little bit more woo-woo.
Yeah. So just let me cover this, because I know there's going to be someone in my audience who, they said, what, you didn't watch Friends growing up and you didn't know who David was? No, I did not. I had to look it up and I'm like, oh yeah, I've seen that guy a billion times, but I've never watched Friends. But yeah, you do kind of look like him. You look like a movie star. Not to toot your horn. I'm just saying, like, you kind of look like this guy.
Josh, I appreciate it, man. I mean, I'm trying to grow my hair out. I got a bad haircut. I'll get there.
You'll get there. I'm working on my hair. Grow, guys, grow. Yeah. That's a Monday and Friday is hair grow day, right?
Exactly.
So, all right, I get to go on a trip with you, but we can only, bring a small minimalist travel. So you could bring one song. This is back in the day where you had like a record. So you could bring one song and one book. And, right. We're going to go do some work. And maybe one tool of some sort. What are you going to bring?
Okay, so the book I would bring would probably be, I don't know, would it be Sapiens? Might be Sapiens.
No kidding. Okay.
Or there's Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. What kind of book could I read over and over and over again? How long do I have?
On our trip or during this podcast interview?
It's just on a trip. Like,
yeah.
In the question, let me think. You know what? I've never read Infinite Jest. I'm going to take Infinite Jest. It's like 1,000 pages.
That's an infinite book. Sounds good.
An infinite book. That was like it was so funny because like there's an SNL skit and they're showing like all the people during COVID, like what they didn't do. And they showed Infinite Jest in that scene. Like, that's me. There it is.
There's me.
There's my COVID book I didn't get to. So that would be the book. Song, like one song.
You only get one song on your iPod. What is it?
To listen over and over again?
Yeah.
Wow. What song do I like enough to listen over and over again? I'm just trying to think. Josh, help me out here. What would your song be?
Oh, Under the Bridge from Red Hot Chili Peppers. When the chorus kicks in, it sounds like angels singing. My kids will be walking and they hear that song. They know it's Dad's favorite song. They'll sing with it. So we sing Red Hot Chili Peppers together as a family in our car. It's kind of like the Step Brothers scene.
Yeah.
But that'd be my song, definitely.
Okay, so
we could come back to it if you need to.
I was just listening to this song, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is like an amazing song. It's "Stairway to Heaven," and it's 7 minutes.
Yeah.
So just to answer the question, move this podcast along. I'll say "Stairway to Heaven," but I want the ability to change my mind later.
Okay.
I'll email you it later.
You hold the option of being able to change your answer, and I'll just re-edit it in, and nobody would even know. So if you hear Stairway to Heaven, it's because I didn't edit it out. All right. So, and you get to bring a tool, right? It could be like no phones, nothing like that, but it could be a tool. It could be something like a bow and arrow. You could bring whatever. It could be a skateboard. It could be something that, you find pleasure in or practicality in.
A tool. Well, I would probably want like a fire starter, wouldn't I? I'll bring that.
Yeah, why not? Okay,
Yeah.
sounds good. So
Okay.
let me. I think I just ran over my microphone cord. Can you still hear me?
I can.
Okay, perfect.
Sounds good.
You could have messed with me like, I can't hear you. All right. So let's get back to dirt and deals. When it comes to what you're doing now, you have a podcast, you have a book, you're about to write the second plot book, right? Super excited about that. And you have a desire and passion, right? Your passive income's gotten to the point where you're like, I don't really need any more money. More money and more deals is cool. But now you're like, I want to outward and help others. What does that look like when it comes to helping others? How do you help people with dirt?
So we really show them step by step how to create this business and then solve all their pain points for them. So our training is really phenomenal.
Why create your own competition, right? Because you're buying more deals and doing more deals. So you train up this assassin, to take down some deals. Like that, is that hurting you in the end? Or like, why would you want to train up the guy who's going to bid on deals against you?
Yeah, it's such a good question. So when I first started teaching, I thought the same thing. I'm like, oh my gosh, creating my own competition. So I put on my investment banking hat and I thought, well, how big is the market? And it looks like there's billions of acres of raw land for sale. It is the most boring real estate niche ever, right? Like you're not going to go on HGTV or the DIY network and see flip this land. The before pictures raw land, the after pictures raw land. So it's an unloved niche. And I mean, you, me, a million people could be in this niche. We'll all run out of money before we run out of deal flow. And there's no sophisticated players, no private equity groups, there's no hedge funds. They have too much money. So that's why.
Yeah, I love it. All right. So I want to get started. I want to get some training. I hire you as my coach, my guide, my Sherpa. I want to go to Bali with you next year. So I've got a year to, get off this rat race, right? Maybe I'm a doctor or something, chiropractor. And I got a year where I want to get on this, off this rat race treadmill.
Right.
Mark, where do I even freaking start?
I think the best place to start is, the best way to learn anything is by doing it. So we've got a free course, how to double your money, 30 days or less. See if the model even resonates with you. So it's just the landgeek.com/quick deals. And we really simplify the business even more. How to buy wholesale. Well, it's a wholesaling model. You buy it wholesale, you sell retail, you'll double your money.
Yeah.
And then once you do it, if you like it, then you can go deeper into the model.
What is that link again?
thelandgeek.com/quick deals.
What we could do is we could put that link in the show notes so people listening then go, yeah, I want to try this out, right? Like $2,500, $5,000, I've got that. Let's put that on a deal. Let's see if I can double my money. Then I might want to double it again. Then maybe again and again, right?
Exactly.
6,000 deals later. So, all right, we're raising up the next generation of investors. You and I are 80 years old. How old are you now?
I'm 51.
You're 51 years old? Oh, you don't look it. All right, you look younger than I do.
You.
You're welcome. Once again, you're not my type. I'm not trying to toot your horn. I'm just saying, like, you look good for your age. All right,
thanks.
So let's just say 40 years from now, you're 91. I'm 80. Holy moly! Yeah, we're old at this point. We're sitting back and we go, we've made it. What does that look like?
Am I a good ancestor? That's really the overarching goal, is to be a good ancestor. And we're going to lose everything in our lives, right? It's all going to go away. But the only thing that really will remain is our values. And so, can I pass those on and be a good ancestor?
Dude, that is a really freaking good answer. Where did you come up with that? Was that a Monday and a Friday thing?
I walk a lot, Josh. I walk a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever gone a walkabout where you just like pick a destination, you're like, it's going to take me a while, I'm going to get there?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Hiking and national parks and all that good stuff.
Yeah. No, I like that. Gosh, I was going to ask another question, but that was a really good answer. Okay. Oh, the question, when it comes to becoming a good ancestor, in the the world of investing. All right.
Right.
So we look out and there's an ancestry tree of, investors that we have helped build and
Right.
invested in, and we've tutored them and mentored them, and they could take away a few characteristics. What are those characteristics that make you a good ancestor for the future investors?
I mean, if you're going to do a deal, you first of all, like, are you finding joy in that deal? So often I see younger people, they just want to do the deal for the money. And ultimately, I think that's going to lead to ruin, really, because at some point you want to do it because it's something bigger than yourself. And once your money problems are solved, then and you don't love what you're doing, and there's no joy in it, and it's just for the money. Uh, it's kind of a recipe for failure in lots of other ways. So I would say that would be the big characteristic: is do you find it joyful, and is it purposeful, and that it's something bigger than yourself, whatever you're building.
Yeah, that's super cool. When it comes to these deal making and your students and such like that, when you're looking at a group of students, how many students have you worked with over the years?
Yeah, I don't even know, hundreds.
Okay. When you're looking at them and you could go, going to be successful, probably not going to be successful. What is that thing when you see someone and you're like, they're probably going to be a successful investor? What is that?
Yeah, I have a spidey sense with some people, because we do an application process, and I can kind of see. And first of all, the best indicator of future results is past results. So if they've literally done nothing up until that point, why do I think that this is going to change them? It's not. And they shouldn't do it. And we tell them that, like, do something first. Because this is hard, right? Business is hard. Entrepreneurship is hard. So once you know that, then does that person have grit? Seth Godin's got this great line where, hockey players love hockey so much that they get their teeth knocked out and they keep going.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing in business. You will get your teeth knocked out metaphorically. Do you love business enough? Do you love that deal enough to keep getting up again and again and again?
Finding joy in the work that you do. For me, that's what I call worship, right? When I'm doing that which I'm made to do on a daily basis and it brings me that much joy and I'm impacting positively like people, like that is my joy. The business and the game, the art, the sport of it for me is there's so much joy in it for me. However, and I would love your advice on this, sometimes my ass is getting whooped from email messages, from deals and from clients and this and that. And I love the game, but there's aspects of the work that really beat me up sometimes. So for a systems, process, operations, tech guy, like what are some things or some resources that I could take a look at that can maybe make my job more joyful?
Yeah, 5 magic words, Marie Kondo. Does this bring me joy? And if the answer is no, then you either delegate it, you eliminate it, or you reverse it. So in the sense that there's some things like we just have to do,
Yeah.
right? So for example, no one likes firing somebody, but you can't delegate that. You can't eliminate that. So you just go to the person and say, does this job bring you joy? And they're probably going to say, no, it doesn't. And then you say, well, let's find you something that does. And then you help that person along their path.
Super cool. Let's do this. During this interview, there's probably a question because I mean we went in the deep end pretty quick, Mark. Like I love you for that. Thank you.
Yeah.
But there's probably a question that I should have asked you about the deal or about your life or about something that I completely screwed up and did not ask you. What is that?
Well, I don't know, because the question that usually people don't ask me is, why are you teaching? Because, you're essentially creating your own competition.
Yeah.
So since you asked that, you've kind of stumped me. Josh, I think you're a phenomenal interviewer. I don't think you left any stone unturned.
On this raw land, no
On,
stone is unturned.
no, not within. Yeah, no.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so then let's do this. One final question for you. All right, this is you got all your needs met financially, right? You're doing okay. You could buy an experience or something material or something else. You could do something else with it. But you just did another deal. You and I did another Morgan Stanley deal, and we doubled our money, and we have $5 million. We're like, okay, what's another $5 million? Like, what are we gonna do with it?
Right.
Like, what for you? What is something that, like, if you had a massive windfall of cash, what is something that you would want to do next?
Well, 10% of it immediately would go to effectivealtruism.org.
What's that?
So this is a group created by William McCaskill. It's like Oxford professor, and all they do all day long are it's like a fund of funds. All they do is look at the best charities to relieve the most suffering and get your biggest bang for your buck. So it turns out like mosquito nets save like thousands of lives per year, and they cost nothing.
Totally.
So these are like, they think about these things. So that would be the first place I would go. Then the second thing would be, well, how do I compound that? And so I can give more to charity, is basically what it is. So, Buffett's Buffett because he's just been doing it longer. He just keeps compounding. So how can it compound the returns and relieve the most suffering in the world? So again, goes back to being a good ancestor. And in between there, I'd like to, a cool experience or two.
Super cool. All right. So for fellow deal makers, if you want to learn about, dirt rich, and if you want to learn about these, investing in raw land, as always, reach out to our guests and say, thanks for being on the show. But you reach out to Mark, with maybe that link, or maybe what other way is there to contact you, Mark, if they're like, hey man, I got extra money, I want to invest it. Those returns and that kind of opportunity sound something fun for me. How could people connect with you?
Yeah. Email me directly, mark@thelandgeek.com.
Super cool.
Just put in the subject, Josh Wilson.
Cool. Yeah. And what we'll do, Josh Wilson, hey, that's me. We'll put that in the show notes below. So if people want to connect with you and do a deal with you, that'll be a way. That's the purpose and mission of the show, is to put deals and deal makers together. So fellow deal makers in the audience, as always, reach out to our guests. Say, thanks for being on the show. Find a way to do a deal with them. And if you are working on a deal or want to talk to the community about a deal, head over to thedealscout.com, fill out a quick form, maybe get you on the show next. This has been a fun episode. I hope you guys had a wonderful day. We'll talk to you all on the next episode. Cheers, everybody.